But today I have my guest, Camille Underwood, who is one of my good friends. We serve in the community together. We do church stuff together. We chat, we talk. If I had 3 words to describe Camille, I would say energetic, positive, and illuminating. Like she's always shining bright. Camille, how are you today?
I am well, Eva. Trying to work with this light at home, but this is where we are in life during the pandemic. So I'm adjustable, flexible, and open.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us on today. I feel like everybody needs to know who you are. And with that being said, just go ahead and tell us who you are in your own words.
Oh, okay. It's interesting. I was giving some thought to our talk today, and here lately, I've wondered, you know, how people read this indelible sign on my forehead that says, "I will listen." I found myself in some of the most interesting situations where I'm like, people just open up and tell me their entire story, seemingly randomly. I could be in the beauty supply store, I could be in Publix, and I'm like, what is this? What is this? And so instead, I think I've been in a posture of just denying what that is. If I had to describe it, and it is an energy. There's an openness. Obviously, that I possess, that people feel comfortable sharing intimate details of their lives, even when I'm literally a stranger in line at the grocery store. And so I've learned to embrace this gift of being available to listen and being able to hear to listen. Here lately, that's something that I've just grappled with because, the act of hearing, if we have our hearing senses, we can hear. But not often are we able to actively listen and listen non-judgmentally. And so I have learned to use that to my advantage as a consultant, an educational consultant, focusing on social and emotional learning for students, faculty, staff, and administrators. And it's making a huge difference in the school districts that I serve because we are humans and people first. And you cannot learn without connection. Connection starts with conversation. Connection starts with relationship. And so it's the heart of the matter, the heart of education, the heart of learning that I'm focused on. And so an open heart, and when a student feels loved, or even a faculty member feels loved, they can teach better, they can learn better. And so I've kind of created this space, and I carry this space where I go. Everywhere I go, my office is my heart. And so, if I'm there, I'm focusing on the heart of the matter. And that's pretty much how Camille Underwood Consulting came to be.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so when you hear this phrase, I really want to ask you this. I like to ask my guests this question. You were created with purpose in mind. You were created with purpose in mind. When you hear that phrase, what do you immediately think of?
Oh, wow. Compassion. Just, having a compassionate heart for others. But it starts with self-compassion. And that's a lesson that I've learned. I think I've learned it in the course of our friendship, our connection, because without that, I'm trying to extend something to others that I don't extend to myself. And it's not genuine, it's not authentic. Simply, it's just not real. And so learning the concept and understanding what it actually means and learning to embody self-compassion, self-love, self-joy, respect everything that flows from within in order to flow outwardly. So I hope that summed it up. I kind of get off topic. Did I answer that question, Eva?
I think you did. I'll ask it again. I think you answered it, but you were created with purpose in mind.
Yeah.
Camille was created with purpose in mind.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And so this is the other thing, I met you as an adult. I think we met probably maybe 3 or 4 years ago at church. I know you as an adult, but I can imagine your friends that you've had, 20, 30 years, saw this Camille grow. Camille, change lanes, discover different things about her purpose in life, her mission in life. And so when I think about that, at some point you were like just high school Camille, or you were elementary school Camille, your mother's daughter, right? When you think about that and where you are now with Camille Underwood Consulting and this focus on social emotional health and learning, what were some of the breadcrumbs or clues along the way that kind of led you to where you are now, all the way from childhood Camille?
It's interesting because I genuinely feel like God has always placed me in positions that would help me be more sensitive to someone else's walk. Um, there was a lot of adjustment and shifting taking place in my early childhood. I was born in New Orleans at about 3 or 4. I moved to Washington, D.C. And then middle school, I moved to Tuskegee, Alabama, culture shock like no other. And so I've always tried to just relate to people and figure out and understand where they were coming from. Because my background was so different. Growing up Muslim, my father was an imam. We covered our heads as children. And so I always stood out like a sore thumb. And now I know, part of my trauma was me just trying to force my way in and fit in the best way I knew how. And so my ability to connect and relate to pretty much anyone from any walk of life, I think those were breadcrumbs that were being dropped even as a child. And my daddy used to call me Smiley. My go-to response was always a smile. And I think to most people's reaction, like, okay, that wasn't anything to smile about. Why are you smiling? And so that has been a gift that God has given me. I can smile through pretty much anything. And that smile represents my joy. And that joy that was there, I think at birth. And I've learned to polish up and bring that joy back to light and help it shine for other people to see. So Smiley Camille has been around since 1971.
Oh my goodness, yes. There has never been a time when I have been around you, despite what you've had going on in life, that you have not been smiling. Like if you walk into the sanctuary, smiling. If I saw you at Inglenook walking into the classroom, smiling. And I love that about you. I love it. And your ability to connect with people and your ability to not, a lot of times we think because we connect with people, but you can also sniff out BS really good as well. So I appreciate that plus in your personality. And so what I want to talk about a little bit, okay, so we hear Camille Underwood Consultant. We hear social emotional health, social emotional learning, consider those parts of a person. Your client, if you had to describe, people are listening now, okay, so if I need a Camille Underwood Consultant, who would I need to be? Like, who are your typical clients? Are they individuals? Are they, groups? What does that look like?
Well, as it stands right now, the majority of my clients are contracts through school districts. I currently have a contract with Midfield City Schools, Birmingham City Schools Special Education Department, and I recently landed a contract with Mobile County Public Schools. And it's interesting because it's like the world of emotional health and education meshing and using education as a platform to teach people how to treat themselves so that they can learn how to treat others. Because ultimately, that's what it boils down to. People will remember how you treated them. Maya Angelou said that you might not remember what someone said or what they did, but you remember how you've been treated. And I think that is one of the most important focuses that we need to look upon, especially in 2021, still in the midst of this pandemic. It boils down to how we treat each other, but it starts with how we treat ourselves. And so my clients right now are primarily contracts with school districts, but I really do plan to work on creating safe spaces for women. That's definitely a part of my purpose. It's personal, and it's not as structured as counseling. It literally is an opportunity to talk about energy and talk about ways that we can align ourselves with our purpose spiritually, physically, emotionally, so that we can be the best version of ourselves that God created us to be. So and I'm pulling people along as I go, because I'm on this path myself. I'm so far from there. And it's a blessing to just recognize that this is a path. It's not a journey. And it takes crooks and turns. And I'm like, where did that turn come from? But I tell you what, every turn that I've been on my path, God has been there. Or that, like you said, there's a breadcrumb right there that says, hey, keep going, go this way. So I've been guided spiritually all along, and I'm just thankful to recognize that at this point in life, and I'm rolling with it.
Yeah. You said a word there that has triggered my next question, my next thought, because I know you, but I want my listeners to really know you, and the kind of life you live, it just does not just happen, right? You put in the work for, a lot of times we think, spirituality, it just happens. No, there's some spiritual practice that we do to help us ourselves. And you said the word energy. So I want to piggyback on that. When you say energy, what does that mean to Camille?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I have learned to relate to energy, because everyone relates to energy different. But the way I relate to energy is, it's on a cellular level. Like, I feel more than I think. I feel enough that to reaffirm or reassure my knowing. And the knowing is not here. It's literally intuitively in my gut. And I've just learned to trust that. And with getting certified as a master Reiki therapist, it's been information that I've learned and I've made it my own. Like I said, my relationship with energy might be different than your relationship or anyone else's, but it's a knowing, an intuitive knowing that I have learned to not question whatsoever. And, of course, with energy, there's low energy, high energy, but it's all energy, all the same. So it's interesting. We started talking about energy, even we'll go on for. I mean, that's the language that I speak. I speak energy, and I'm self-aware about my own energy, and I'm also very aware of other people's energy. And so the opportunities to cut energy off when I realize I'm taking on something that does not belong to me. My spiritual practice allows me to cut it off, sometimes give it back, release it. And it has been such a healing practice for me. It's just part of who I am. It's a daily practice for me to recognize and align my energy to keep it clear and free flowing as much as I possibly can. So. Yes,
you lit up. Oh my gosh, you lit up on that question. Yeah, as time goes on, and kind of with Reiki, meditation, one thing that 2020 afforded for me is that the moment of isolation and living alone, I upped my meditation to just make it. And I really challenged parts of myself that I probably would not have challenged. And I always thought that I got a lot of rest, but I was able to get rest, and I was able to really just experience some things on a spiritual level, and really dig deeper into the teachings of Jesus, and really just look at, okay, what's here, and what has been layered on top of me that has nothing to do with this. And so once you find that place of freedom, and when you find the spiritual practices that work for you, I think there's a freedom that comes with that can never be taken away, if that makes sense. I told somebody the other day, I was talking to one of my coaching clients, and I told her, I said, once you're free, you're free. So I'm not worried about you shrinking back. But that freedom that I want you to get to a place of freedom where you realize and know how much of a creator and how much of a manifestor you are, and how much you play into what actually happens in your life, And so when you start talking about energy, your energy, you're at that point, you're starting to acknowledge that I am a co-creator. I am helping create some of these things that are happening in my life. And so I don't just get to blame God. I don't just get to blame my therapist. I got to look Eva in the face. So thank you so much. Like, you lit up. I felt that energy, and I know we could talk about that topic all day, but I know that's such a big part of who you are. And as your friend, I just had to toss that question out there. So we've heard about Camille, from childhood to now, her breadcrumbs that she's found along the way, the different contracts that you have, and mostly working with schools. But you have a desire to create some safe space for women. And I love that, because that's, one of my main goals is, there's so many places that are, look at everything from a perspective of, from men perspective. And so creating those spaces for women to look at things from a holistic perspective, I'm all with that. Then we got a good understanding of your purpose and your spiritual practice. So as we get ready to wrap up, I really want to know, is there anything else that you want the listeners and the audience of Unleashed with Eva to know about Camille Underwood?
Oh, I don't know what you said that triggered this thought, but it's interesting. I have conversations about my spiritual practice, all of my spiritual practices all the time. And I like to reassure people that your path is your path and it belongs to you, and you can shape it, you can mold it. And like you say, co-create with God the way that your energy and your spirit is leading you and guiding you, and learning to trust that intuitive nature that you have that tells you keep going, to stop, hold up, breathe. Learning to listen and trust that, that's totally your process. And whatever you do to reach that point and continue on that path, it's yours. And here's what I do realize, it's certainly not linear. And sometimes you kind of circle back to where you started and you're like, oh goodness, I went this way. How did I get back here? And it's okay. I just want to affirm, because now it's so cliche-ish. We see so much stuff on social media, almost like a formula, like you got to do A, B, C, D. Well, sometimes you got to go A, you might jump to G, you might end up at Z, and it's okay as long as you're aligned with your energy and your spiritual self. You're on the right path. So keep going.
Yes. And I love the way Michael Beckwith describes it. So sometimes we talk about it as, like steps and, ascension, but he also talks about a level of awareness that grows outwards, right. So you may have to come back to something, because I really believe, like, when you think about an individual, we have this life, this incarnation of life. I know I'm tipping on some toes right now, but this incarnation of life, there may be something that, we have agreed, or we know that our soul knows we're supposed to work out in this incarnation, right? And so we may have to, in that area, come back to some growing awareness in that area so that we fulfill our life's purpose, right, for our soul's purpose, if that makes sense. So I love the way you said that, but I want to come back to this question. Is there anything else you want our listeners to know about Camille Underwood?
I'm just, I'm thankful, Eva. I'm so thankful to be in this space. And I'm thankful that you've been here and walked with me through some things that I had no expectation that I would experience in this lifetime. And I'm thankful for our connection, our sisterhood, our bond, and understanding the power of sisterhood. It's sacred, and I value it. And I don't know, it's difficult for me to talk about myself without talking about us, because we're sharing the space tonight. But no, I'm in such a good space right now. It's hard to put it into words, really. All things considered, it's 2021, 2020 honestly was not as rough for me, thank God, as it could have been. And so my heart of gratitude is just huge right now. And I'm just thankful. I'm absolutely thankful.
Yes. And gratitude paves the way for abundance. So I love it.
The seed of purpose is within us. But are you giving it enough light and water to grow? Sometimes we have too many objects in frame, making it hard to focus. We let detrimental relationships get in the way. Or we leave our joy out to be stolen by comparing our lives to what we see on our phone screens. Who are you? Why are you here? These are the questions the Creator wants to help us answer. On our self-discovery journey to finding our purpose, God leaves us clues, breadcrumbs. If we can silence the noise and take a closer look at our lives, our relationships, our gifts, we'll see they're all breadcrumbs leading us like the North Star to our purpose.